So everything we do is based on research. And so Listing Academy has been reaching out to a lot of stakeholders prior to COVID-19 time. And so our objective really in this COVID-19 pandemic leadership series is to equip our stakeholders with basic behaviors and skills. And so the agenda for us was very clear from the outset. One, we wanted to give our stakeholders a specific skill on emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, from our perspective, is not just understanding emotional intelligence from the periphery, which is understanding it from either the Daniel Goleman competency framework, which a lot of us are familiar with, in terms of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And we felt that it would be a good thing at this time, particularly based on the kind of anxiety and stress, to also, equip and, hand over to our stakeholders certain leadership behaviors that is going to boost the leadership repertoire of our stakeholders. And we said that there are 3 basic leadership behaviors that leaders must have in the 21st century, in addition to the emotional intelligence skill that we treated on April 15, 2020. And we said the first one is transformational leadership. It's a key behavior that we need to have. The second one we said is authentic leadership. And the third one we said servant leadership. And so transformational leadership was what we discussed last week, Wednesday, 22nd of April. And today we are here to see and understand how we will bring our authentic self to work at this challenging time. And so by next week, we'll be rounding off this leadership series by talking about servant leadership. And that will be, I think it promised to be another great time. But so as we move on today to talk about authentic leadership, and I want us to really, pay attention to this leadership behavior that we're going to analyze today. And I hope that at the end of the day, we will all come out as more authentic in our lives as individuals, family life, our work life, and even group life. Okay, so I will proceed to share my slide. Then I will also give 1 or 2 tips on how we can best enjoy the program. So I'll proceed to share my slide right away. Let's take a poll quickly. I think we have just 1 poll here. So I'm going to launch a poll, and let's take a poll quickly. I'm launching it now. So within just 1 minute, we'll try and see how we'll do in that particular poll. So I'm launching the poll right now. So please, 1 minute. Let's take the poll quickly, please. So what I have here, you have 42%. We said the opening of the lockdown, the ease of the lockdown, Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun. 42% that is great. Then you have 25% saying not great at all. And you have another 33% saying they are indifferent. So you can see it's a balance, really. It's a balance in terms of how people feel at this time. And to be very frank with you, it is okay to feel the way we are feeling at this time because there is a whole lot of uncertainty. And but let's dive in straight on into what we have today, which is on authentic leadership. Displaying your authentic leadership behaviors in a COVID-19 pandemic time. Once again, you are welcome to this program, and I really do hope that we have a great time. And so this is my profile, and you can go through it at your convenience. It's not very important for now. You can go through it and at your convenience. And so let's move on to some of the housekeeping for today. First of all, what I want from you is I want all participants to move to look at the top right, just almost at the middle of your slide. You will see what you call a view option. A view option. So then when you click on the view option, you're going to have a drop down, select side by side. Select side by side. And so when you select side by side, then you navigate towards the extreme right of the slide and click it and drag it to the left to create a balance of 50-50 or 50-60 in favor of the slide so that you can get a better view of me. So that you can also feel what the presenter is like. We are in a physical class rather than just seeing slide talking to you. Is that fine? Okay. So all participants will be muted throughout the duration of the program, and my colleague, my co-host, Mr. Ilo, will also assist for muting if anyone comes in. And also, if any video is on, is going to also assist with that. And the host will grant access as necessary, like I've explained. I'm going to grant access as necessary. So on joining the webinar training, please mute your mic and turn off your video. And we are recording today's webinar training, and we will share with all participants a link to access it. And during the presentation, if you encounter any audio issue, please just refresh your browser, or you log in and log out and log in again. It might be a better option. Please submit your questions anytime during the webinar training using the chat box, which you can access by clicking the chat button. Use your headphones, which I hope most of us, or if not everyone, is actually using at this time. Then the presentation slide will be shared during the course of this program, but I don't know, because I always want to provide some references in terms of books you can consult at the end, and it's not currently on this slide, so we might end up sharing this one also after the program. And so the program, this is the program, Authentic Leadership, and displaying your authentic self at this time, which is a very challenging time, as we all are aware of. So let's look at the goals for this program. I know that quite a number of us are familiar with emotional intelligence. Quite a number of us are also familiar with transformational leadership. But I don't know how much familiarity participants here we have on authentic leadership. And so, very quick one, I want us to go to the chat button. Just go to the chat button and just tell me how familiar with you are with the concept of authentic leadership. Have you taken any program on authentic leadership before? Just put it there using the chat button quickly. In another 1 minute, they will proceed. Okay, thank you very much. I can see that quite a number of us haven't taken any program before on authentic leadership. I also observed that one of the participants was saying that if it was possible for us to introduce ourselves. Because of the time, we would have really loved to do that. It would have been excellent to do that, which is one of the things we normally benefit from when we are in a physical face-to-face class. But unfortunately, because of the number and also the number of participants and also the time that we have, we won't have that luxury of time to be able to take introduction for all. But we hope as we make progress, we'll be able to engage us to be involved in this program. And so let's move on. So understanding authentic leadership from both a practitioner and theoretical perspective is going to be the first goal that we will want to achieve from this program. Secondly, we will learn how to bring our authentic self to work, both in a normal time and in a crisis time, both in a telecommuting world, a teleworking world, and in a world of physical office setting. Then we also try to gain insights on how to become an authentic leader. What this program is really all about is what we call the authentic leadership journey. And that journey really starts with you, the individual, me, the individual. And so the authentic leadership is about man know thyself, the Delphi oracle in Greece in the 16th century. And so that is going to be the first. So please mute your, turn off your video, please. Please turn off your video. Very important. And turn off your video, please. And let your, and also I told you, be on side by side. Go to the view option, click on side by side, and move the slide to the left a little bit to create a balance between my own view and the presentation view. So authenticity is really about understanding ourselves as individuals and how we relate. And it's a very good leadership behavior that can complement very well with transformational leadership and the emotional intelligence that we've learned. And we also learn how to lead authentically with passion and values, as well as with our heart and our minds. And, sometimes in the workplace, we lead, and what we hear most time is, oh, we've come to do this job, let's do this job. There's no time for play. There's no time to, for emotions. Please take emotions out of here. And this is the workplace and all that. So we're going to learn the leadership journey from an authentic leadership perspective today. And so with that, we look at, let's look at the concept from the definition. What is authentic leadership? And but before I give you the definition, there's something I'm going to move to so that you will have an understanding of what we are doing here and what this program will not cover. So there are two basic approaches to authentic leadership. And one of them is the practical approach, and the other one is a theoretical approach to authentic leadership. And so just a little bit of history about it. In 2000, in the early 2000s, we are all familiar with the fall of Aaron and other Arthur Anderson. And so there was a kind of leadership that was felt to be missing at that time. And we felt that a lot of leaders, there was an issue of integrity that resulted in misstatement of financial statement and all that. And so people begin to look at, why is character in capital letter, why was it missing? And so leaders begin to look inwards, first of all, the inner mind, trying to see, look at themselves and say, what is missing? And so the proponent or the leader of the practical approach to leadership, the man called Bill George, which I'm going to talk a lot about, decided to really look at the concept. And so he wrote the first book called Authentic Leadership. And so this is the book called Authentic Leadership. So this was the first book that he wrote, even though he went further to write so many other books. So this is it, Authentic Leadership. And he was trying to rediscovering the secret to creating lasting values. So he felt that values, ethical boundaries, principles were missing. And so 2003 was the time he wrote the book, and he was the father and the person who actually defined the practical approach to authentic and leadership. But in 2005, scholars from the leadership world converged in the US, which was led by one like Wolumba, who is a great scholar in leadership, and Bruce Avalio is also another great scholar, and many other scholars converged at a seminar to discuss authentic leadership. And so they wanted to understand what is authentic leadership? What should we be looking out for in authentic leadership? And so they also wanted to know, because from a theoretical framework perspective, which is for those who are researchers, you don't want to know about a concept in terms of practically. And so Bill George, which is Williams George, was talking so much, explaining so much in terms of what the leader should be and how the leader should be authentic, both in fact home and in the workplace. But we need to, from a research perspective, researchers want to know, how do we measure it? And so this group of persons, scholars in leadership, converged in the US, and they provided dimensions with regard to the theoretical approach. And that seminar and the aftermath, immediate aftermath of that seminar, produced what you would call the theoretical approach, and a lot of the questionnaires you have today, which are the leading, the authentic leadership questionnaire, or the authentic leadership survey. So quite a number, I think about 4 standard survey and questionnaire in that you can use today from a research perspective to test the effect of authentic leadership on a lot of work-related outcomes, such as commitment, satisfaction, organizational justice, and others. And so it's just good to provide this background. But this program really, 1.5 hours, we won't be able to cover both the practical and the theoretical approach. So we will confine ourselves to the practical approach to authentic leadership. But it's going to be a great journey, the practical approach. And if we have another time with any of the organizations at a later date or in the future, we'll be able to take them through the dimension of the theoretical approach, which is also a very interesting one. And so we are going to start, but the definition that I've chosen here, which is this definition, is actually from the theoretical group. And so authentic leadership is a pattern of leader behavior that draws upon and promotes both positive psychological capacities and a positive ethical climate to foster greater self-awareness and internalize moral perspective, balanced processing of information, and relational transparency on the part of leaders, working with subordinates, very critical, fostering positive self-development. And if you unpack this definition, that would actually be what would be the dimension of authentic leadership from a theoretical perspective. But just to share a little bit of light before I move away from this, in authentic leadership, it's so much about what you call the positive psychology and positive organizational behavior, which is that leaders shouldn't just be seeing the negative side of things. And so in this COVID-19 crisis, what are the positive? What are the upside? And so when we say upside, what are the things that you think are beneficial at this time? And so positively is seeing things in the good side of things in a difficult situation. And so they are saying that you should adopt the positive organizational behavior, or what you call positive psychology, in crisis time. And so in a COVID-19 time, you must look at it from what are the positives that you can take from it as an individual. But he said it starts with self-awareness. Every man must know himself or herself. Every woman must know herself. It starts from there, both the practical approach and internalized moral perspective. There must be a moral dimension to your life. We spoke so much about it when we dealt with transformational leadership, that James McGregor Bonds, who is the father of transformational leadership, made us to understand that a leader who exhibits or has all the characteristics of a transformational leader cannot be referred to as a transformational leader if it doesn't imbibe the moral underpinnings of transformational leadership. And he went ahead to talk about balanced processing of information. What does it really mean? It means that whenever information is passed on to you, you need to look at it from the pros and cons. So, for example, what motivates you? Are they intrinsic factors? or extrinsic factors? How do you balance that as an individual to make sure that you are not overly weighed to just extrinsic factors that motivates you to do things as an individual, right? So it's also talk about balance. It talk about relational transparency. How do you relate with people? Who are those that are in your circle of influence? Who can you count on in times of crisis? As you're in crisis time, if you are in need of fund, you need to pay school fees. How do you? So those are some of the theoretical, some of the issues that were addressed in the theoretical perspective by Bruce Avalio, Wolumba, and others. But we are not going to be moving into that realm, that dimension of theoretical leadership, because it is really broad and the time is limited. And so from the Behaviours perspective, it is important for us to understand authentic leadership. And so who is an authentic leader? It starts from here. An authentic leader is one who can align people around shared mission and values. And so if you are working in an organization, you want to know how do you understand the mission, the values, the vision of the organization? How are you able to take your people embedding them into what your vision and your values have? So how are you able to empower them to leading from the front authentically, while serving all stakeholders? How do they balance the stakeholders that they service and collaborating with others to sustain superior results? We are all working in teams. Whether you're an employer, you're an employee, we are all working in teams. So you need to balance that. It's very, very important. You need to balance that. And so authentic leaders align people around shared mission and values and empower them to lead while serving all stakeholders and collaborating with others to sustain superior results. So approaches to authentic leadership. I've mentioned this: practical approach and theoretical approach. And I've taken my time to explain that. There's no need to repeat that. So I will move on from here. So we have the practical approach, we have the theoretical approach. We are dealing with the practical approach here. And so the practitioner perspective to authentic leadership. So like I've said, in the early 2000s, with the fall of Enron and Anderson, the death of misconduct shocked the world. There were a lot of concerns in terms of what had happened in the business world. It was a very challenging time for business. And, the issue of integrity was at stake. It was observed that a lot of leaders were pursuing what you would call short-term goals at the detriment of the long-term sustainable interest of their organization. And so the affirmation shock therapy made people to realize that something was sorely missing in many companies at that time. People were concerned, people were worried, like we are now. Most participants here, quite a number of us, we are working in organizations. We have our jobs right now. But one thing that is certain is that we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We don't know what is ahead of us. COVID-19 in Nigeria, we've not even started what you would call, the curve, flattening the curve. We've not even started flattening the curve. And those in Lagos, Abuja, Ogun State and Lagos State, and those are in the Federal Capital Territory. But on the 4th, organizations will be preparing themselves to resume. But the question is that there's a whole lot of unknown. And so, like it was in 2003, in the aftermath of the shock that happened in the global space, business space, where the great Arthur Anderson and the fall of Enron happened. In 2008, we have a similar problem when there was a global crisis. And so we are also in another time, in an uncharted territory. And so how do we begin to reflect based on what we know of what happened in 2003, the shock wave that engulfed the world? How are we able to learn from that experience? And so it was observed at that time that what was really missing was leadership. And B. George was able to narrow it down So not just leadership in a broad sense, but authentic and leadership. And that was really the foundation that spurred him to begin to do his research, and that led to the book that he wrote on authentic leadership. And so what is the case for new leadership? And so because of the happenings, the lack of integrity that occurred at that time, and also the lack of authenticity in the leaders that were operating at that time, a new kind of leadership was born. And that leadership was authentic leadership. And so in response to those violations, new laws and regulation was crafted to close the loopholes. And those of us who are compliance officers, who are lawyers, and who understand laws from different perspectives and jurisdictions, that was when the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 was given birth to. One of the most far-reaching laws that was enacted in the United States after the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 in the US during the Great Depression. And so the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was released, and quite a number of laws were released. And in 2008, when the crisis also occurred, the Dodd-Frank Act was also released, and quite a number of laws were released to be able to mitigate some of the challenges that came with earlier on in the fall of Enron and Anderson, and in the crisis, the global financial and economic crisis of 2008. But although some changes in regulation are appropriate, as it were at that time, and which we are going to see in the COVID-19 time, going to be a lot of changes. Budgets are going to be slashed. Countries are going to be looking at new ways. Countries are going to be requesting for debt forgiveness. Organizations are going to be looking at how they can continue to exist. Some organizations are going to be going under. And so a lot of unknown, a lot of time anxiety will be happening, not just in Nigeria, but globally. No? So it was observed that most of the laws, as it were at that time, did not address the deeper issues that were at stake. No, you can set a lot of laws just to be able to mitigate what is happening in the spur of time. But it's impossible to legislate integrity, stewardship, and sound governance. And so leadership, governance, integrity, stewardship, service, selfless service are things that you really cannot legislate. And so as we begin to progress during this COVID-19 time, a lot is going to be happening. But the question that you need to ask yourself, which is going to be you and you alone, we need to ask yourself, is my authenticity in doubt? Is my authenticity still intact? Is my integrity, my stewardship, my leadership, is it still available? Do I still have presence in the workplace, even in a teleworking world? Do my subordinates still feel my presence? Do I still maintain those boundaries? Or do I just send them email at this time? Do I just send scheduled meetings without even consulting? What do I really do at this time? So I can see some comments, but very important that, please, Mr. Ilo, if there are comments that you want me to pay attention to as we make progress, even though I would really prefer that we ask a lot of questions or take these comments almost at the end of the program. But if there are any that you think is critical enough for me to pay attention to as we make progress, I'll really appreciate that. Are you with me?
I think you have to attend to one by Zoka Edekobi. He's making suggestions because I think he's a private sector person.
Okay.
And he's saying that you can do less of these theoretical underpinnings. Why you go to the ones, because that is even the essence why they are here. Okay. He wants an opportunity where he could ask real life business situational questions and get answers from us.
Okay.
So I think he made a good suggestion.
Okay, so we are moving there. We're moving there. I think we'll get there very shortly.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll get there very shortly. So that's the business of today. So So I think those are the questions. Then the case for new leadership continues. So the situation demanded new leaders. Companies needed leaders who lead with purpose, values, and integrity. And please, as we move on, it's good for us to look at this word very critically. Purpose, values, and integrity. In short, a new kind of leader was needed, the authentic leader. And so in 2003, that was when the concept of authentic leadership actually came up. So, but again, we have old challenges. In 2009, in the year, in the 1920s, late 20s and early 30s, the Great Depression. In the early 2000s, the integrity issue that led to the fall of a lot of WorldCom, Anderson, and the rest. The way you have some of those challenges, even in 2008, in the global crisis, there's a new challenge now, which is a COVID-19 challenge. But one challenging era gone, integrity failure, another challenging era surfaces, COVID-19. But you can always connect it with this handshake to say, look, there are lessons that can be learned. And so, Bill just said that authenticity, authentic leadership leadership is about authenticity, not style. Leadership is not about style. And so, the authentic leader. So, what are some of the attributes, that we'll be looking at for today as we make progress from an authentic leader? So, authentic leaders genuinely desire to serve others through their leadership. And so, if you do not have that desire to really serve people, to serve first before you become a leader, then you can never be an authentic leader. More interested in empowering the people. So an authentic leader must have the interest to empower the people they lead to make a difference than they are in power, money, or prestige for themselves. So leadership from an authentic perspective is not really about the intrinsic motivations. You want to make money, what do you want to do? You are self-centered. No, it's about the people you lead. How can you make their life better? Authentic leaders are guided by qualities of the heart, by passion and compassion. They have empathy as they are guided by qualities of the mind. It's not about result. How do you achieve that result? How do you feel? How do you relate with people? Authentic leaders lead with purpose, meaning, and values. They cherish the values they have. And if they are working in organizations or if they are entrepreneur, they talk about the shared values. What are the values of that organization? And when you wake them up, they're able to tell you what the values are. They are very focused on the goals of the organization. They build an enduring relationship with people, and people follow them because they know where they stand. People don't want to follow you because you are the leader, but they follow you because they know that you have their interests at heart. They are consistent and self-disciplined. When their principles are tested, they refuse to compromise. When things are going right, it's very easy for people to follow you. When things are going right, you have a lot of friends. But when challenging time comes, the question is that, where will your people be? Will they still be leading? Will they still be following you? So dedicated to developing themselves, authentic leaders must self-develop. It is very important because it is out of your self-development that you can begin to give. Because for those who are Christian, they say out of the abundance of the mind, the mouth speaketh. So it's very critical for us to understand that. So being your own person, authenticity really is about you as an individual. And so in these 3 leadership behaviors we will be talking about, we'll talk about the transformational leadership. And this one is the one that talks mostly about you as an individual. It starts with you, your authentic self. So leaders are all very different people. We are different. Any prospective leader who buys into the necessity or attempting to emulate all the qualities of another leader is doomed to fail. You need to be your natural person. You need to be yourself, your authentic self every day. Very, very key to what we do here. So the purpose of authenticity, what are the key facts? To become authentic, you must develop your own leadership style, consistent with your personality and character. To become authentic, it's not about emulating people. You can be influenced by others, but you must know that I am authentic. I am myself. I have my vision. I have my lifestyle. I have my character. And these are the things that drive me as a person. I have my life stories. I have my crucibles. And so you must begin to start by your stories. What are my stories? And how do you share those stories? And how do you connect those stories and the challenges, which are the crucibles that you have faced in life? Being true to the person you were created to be means accepting your fault as well as using your strength. Accepting your shadow side is an essential part. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses, what we call your sweet spot. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? Very important. What are your intrinsic motivators and your extrinsic motivators? What motivates you as a person? They are very, very key as we move ahead. So deciding to the core of authenticity, think of your decision being based on two concentric circles. As leaders, we must think of ourselves as taking decisions from two circles. In the outer circle are all laws, regulation, and ethical standards with which our company must comply. So what kind of organizations do you have? What kind of organization do you lead? What kind of a leader, does your subordinates, your colleagues see you as? Do they see you as those who are just out there to ensure that laws are complied with? So, for example, the president has spoken about COVID-19, the resumption that will be happening in Lagos, Ogun State, and Abuja. And I know that a lot of states will be following suit. And so, as a leader, are you just going to do what they call the minimum that the president have said? In terms of right now, everybody is going to be having face masks. So what is your own plan for your employees as they resume? How do you continue to maintain social distance? What is it that's going to change? What are the business continuity planning you're going to have? And so do you see just beyond the guidelines to see that those individuals who will be coming to your workplace, they are actually human beings. If anything happens to them, they are not numbers. They are human beings. They are people. They are persons. And so how do you go beyond the outer circle, what we call the outer part of the onion that we're going to talk about as we proceed? And so in the inner circle are your core values. So the minimal approach would have been defined by the president or by state governors, but from your inner perspective, your organization, what are the core? How does it drive from your values? What values do you place on people and the people that you lead? And so those are the things. So just be damn sure that your decisions as a leader stay within your inner circle. Let it go beyond the periphery, the outer surface, and let it be deep. And so, have a deep dive in terms of the implication of resumption. And that how do you begin to dimension your employees? How do you begin to pick up their files to know who are those that have underlying illness or ailment? And how do you begin to plan with those individuals and your human resources department at this time for them to work home, to continue the teleworking that they've been doing? And so how do you segregate all that? How do you make provisions for all that? That is how authenticity will be treated, will actually be observed. That is the lens on which we are going to be looking at authenticity at this critical time. And so there are 5 essential dimensions of authentic leadership. So for you to be an authentic leader, there are 5 dimensions. They start from your purpose. What are your purpose in life? What are the purpose of your organization? What values do you hold dear? What relationships have you established? Are you self-disciplined? And do you look at people from the heart? And so those are some of the things. And so we're going to ask ourselves a few questions. Do we pursue purpose with passion? To become a leader, it is essential that you first answer the question, leadership for what purpose? What are you leading for? Do you lead for the sake of leading, or your leading is a means to an end? If you lack purpose and direction in leading, why would anyone want to follow you? Why would anyone? Daniel Goleman says that why should anyone be led by you? Why should anyone follow you? It is very important that our purpose, we must pursue it with passion. I've had quite few experiences in the workplace, and I see that people come to work without passion. So how do you bring passion to the workplace? And so authenticity will say that whether you are the owner of the business, whether you are working for someone, your leadership must reflect by the passion you put in your job. How do you serve people? Because sometimes when we have our own, we want to be served greatly. But when we are working for people, we tend to be shabby in what we do. And so the purpose and the passion we bring to our purpose is very critical. What kind of values do we have? When that value is tested, would we be found wanting, right? Like for those who are Christian, they say, when the roll is called up yonder, will you be found on the right side? And so those are things that we need to look at. What kind of values do you practice? Leaders are defined by their values and their character. Authenticity is really about character. What is your character? In crisis time, in a COVID-19 time, now you have a lot of time to spend with your family. Will your character change now that you are at home? How do you live a better life? How do you live a more holistic life, a more complete life? How do you balance your life with work and work at this time? How do you create a balance? How do you have time for the kids? How do you have time for other things? It's very critical at this time. And so what values do you hold dearly as an individual? Lead with the heart. Sometimes it's very easy for us to lead with our mind. Businesses have evolved from maximizing the physical output of their workers to engaging the minds of their people. To excel in the 21st century, great companies, great leaders will go one step further by engaging the hearts of their employees through a sense of purpose, engaging them, not just by saying that this is what we need to achieve, but begin to engage their mind and heart, and so that they can follow you. Establish enduring relationship. More too often, people work in the workplace, they don't know themselves. They say, look, I don't give a damn about knowing anybody. I just come here to work. We are here to work. What does it mean to have relationship? I come to work, I stay 8 or 9 to 5, I go home. There's no really need for a relationship. But the capacity to develop close and enduring relationship is one mark of a leader. The detached style of leadership will not be successful in 21st century. Today's employees demand more than that. Employees want people who pay attention to them, people who have their interests at heart, people who listen to them. And, they want to give themselves fully to their jobs and to those leaders who pay attention to them. And just somehow it might be easy in this COVID-19 time. In emotional intelligence, we talk about the anxiety that people face right now. And in the US, a few days ago, I heard that one of the doctors, the emergency room ER doctor, that was in the front line, committed suicide when she was infected with COVID-19. Imagine the kind of anxiety that even doctors who understand the psychology of the time have faced. And so there are a lot of psychological effects, the issue of well-being, depression and all that. And so how do you relate with your subordinate at this time? Or do you only call them when you have meetings? Oh, please, I sent a meeting. Did you see my meeting invite? You haven't attended to this. You haven't attended to that. What time do you have to reach time to even talk just about what is going on, how they are coping, in terms of even family life, what is going on, how you can help, and if they even have some learning, how you can also support them at this time. And so it's also self-discipline. At this time, we need to demonstrate self-discipline. It is very critical. You can't be an authentic leader without this dimension. Self-discipline is an essential quality of an authentic leader. Without it, you cannot gain the respect of your subordinate. It's easy to say that someone has good values, but lacks the discipline to convert those values into consistent action. Do you still maintain the boundaries you used to maintain in office? Do you ask people before you send meeting invites to their calendars? Do you maintain those boundaries? It is still very important. They have more than enough to cope with at this time. Students are doing online studies. And most of us, we are aware that online studies is more of 80 to 90% the parents and just 20 or 10% the children. And so how do we understand that? If you are in a meeting, if you have children coming to meet their mom, their dad, how do you see it? Do you see them as part of this process? Saying that, hey, hello, how are you doing? Just say hello and begin to understand the time. Those are critical characteristics that a leader who is authentic and should possess at this time. But it's good to align those in terms of your purpose, your values, the relationship, self-discipline, and leading from the heart with asking what passion. So we need to ask the question, what passion do you have for your purpose? What behaviors do you really exhibit to drive your values? How do you connect with your people at this time in terms of maintaining relationship? How consistent are you with those things you used to do prior to the COVID-19 time in terms of being disciplined? So what kind of compassion do you have in terms of how do you lead from the heart? And so we're going to be looking at them very briefly before we move to how we can now begin to migrate into that leadership journey. And so an authentic leader must have passion to pursue purpose. Many leaders search for years, even decades, to find the purpose for their leadership. It is relatively easy to state your purpose early in life, but much harder to develop passion for it. Passion for your purpose comes when you are highly motivated by your work because you believe in its intrinsic worth and you can use your abilities to maximize the effect. Having found the purpose, so how do you have the right values, behaviors to drive your values? You must be true to your values. How can you be true to your values? Have you found the purpose that you ignite your passion? You then have to test your values in the crucible of life experiences. And so sometimes some people believe that experiences don't matter. They do. The experiences that you have, the ups and the downs that you have, the challenges. For example, some of us, like me personally, I've lost an uncle at this time. People have lost loved one. Lost my uncle in London. He was healed, went to the hospital, and he was infected. And he has an underlying condition. And so he passed on Good Friday. And so people have different crucibles of life as they move on. And as at last week, so many people have passed on globally. And in Nigeria, the figures keep increasing every day. And to be very frank, we have not even started flattening the curve. And so people are going to lose loved ones. But what does that really mean? And what kind of lessons would that teach you at this time in terms of your crucibles? This does not just happen by listing your values. It's not about just listening values or saying that we have a clipper. So listening, we have a clipper of values. But what does it really mean in terms of your values? What do they really mean? Only in the crucible will you learn how to cope with pressure to compromise your values and deal with potential conflict between them. And so sometimes if you are tested at this time, how will you stand? Will you still stand firm or you will fall? So leaders who are authentic must develop compassion. And more too often, like when we talk about emotional intelligence, one of the greatest hallmark of a socially aware leader is a leader who has empathy. You must have empathy. A lot of leaders in the workplace are so much about how you can get the job done. So it's about getting the job done. The how, they don't really pay attention to that. So can you lead authentically without compassion? It is not possible. Although some leaders behave as though they have no compassion for anyone, it is your life experiences that open up your heart to have compassion for the most difficult challenges that people face along life journey. Far too many leaders wall themselves off from people who are experiencing the full range of life's challenges. At this time, some leaders don't even want to know. If you have so much, can you give a little? You can see what's happening now. A lot of the sports leaders, those that are in the sporting world, they have been donating, they have been giving. A lot of our corporate leaders, corporate world, they have been giving. And so it is about, this is a time where you give. You might not even have so much, but you might have some aged uncles, aged aunties. At this time, how do you call them? Even giving them so little from the little that you have, they might go a long way. And so having compassion, looking at your subordinate at this time and asking them, how are you doing? How may I be of help? What can we do? What can the organization do for you at this time? Asking some of those questions might go a long way in relieving the anxiety that a lot of employees, and having the conversation in terms of being open, discussing what plans do you have. If you want to cut down the salaries of employees, having a frank and fair conversation at this time. If you want to be able to save job but reduce salary, how do you do that? Even if you want to relieve people of their job, What kind of conversation do you have at this time? It is very African. So those leaders often avoid, those leaders who don't have compassion, who don't have empathy, they often avoid intimate relationship, even with their friends and loved ones. They don't call. This time, social distancing doesn't mean that you shouldn't call. You can still call. So also relationships and connectedness. Enduring relationships are built on connectedness and a shared purpose or working together towards a common goal. Every person has a life story. They want to share it with you. If you are open to hearing those stories with them, it is sharing our life stories that will develop trust and intimacy. And if you listen to Karen Lencioni, he always talk about sharing your life story. And he asked a question when they went for a strategy session and said, you have to be a vulnerable leader by sharing. Where did you grow up? What was growing up like? So in this COVID time, how do you know? I heard of a story of yesterday of cousins in Norway who migrated to US, and they were able to discover themselves that they were cousins from Norway, and they are just neighbors in the United States. And so how do you reflect in retrospection at this time? Those are critical things that an authentic leader must begin. But remember what I said, self-discipline must consciously and consistently practice. A leader who is authentic must practice self-discipline consistently. Leaders are always being examined under the microscope, their behaviors. Remember what we said about when we talk about emotional intelligence, about the mirror neuron, that leaders are those that subordinates want to mirror. They want to mirror what you do. And so when you have a leader who is a bully, then you are likely to breed bullies in the office. So it is very important for us to understand that. So their behaviors are observed, discussed, and described by their subordinate and colleagues. And so it is very important. Do I dare to share problems with my boss? How many of your subordinates can come to you and share their problem? Are you open? Do they see you? How many times have you discussed? So to be authentic, leaders must behave with consistency and not letting stress get in the way of their judgment. They must learn to handle any kind of pressure and stay cool and calm. It is very important. The authentic leadership journey. Let's go through this journey. And so the last phase of the practical approach is for us now going through this authentic leadership journey. So there is no such thing as an instant leader. Leadership is a journey. Your journey to authentic leadership will take you through many peaks and valleys as you encounter the world's trial, rewards, and seductions. Are you seduced by money? And when you are seduced, you fall. Becoming an authentic leader takes dedication to your development and growth, as there will be many temptations to pull you off the course of your true north. We're going to understand what is the true north. Maintaining your authenticity along the way may be the greatest challenge we ever face. What stood out about the journey of authentic leaders was the passion they felt about their life stories and the motivation these stories gave them to become authentic leaders. Begin by asking yourself, what is my life story? In understanding and framing your story, you will find a calling to lead authentically, and you will remain fidelity to your true north. And so, what is a leader's true north? We cannot finish this program today without knowing what's your true north. True north is the internal compass that guides you successfully through life. And so as an authentic leader, you must know that compass, like the normal compass. When the compass regulates, where is it facing? Is it facing your true north? Do you have the necessary armor? Do you have the necessary tools in your toolkit as a leader to be able to navigate through that compass? And so a true north is the internal compass that guides you successfully through life. And we are going to look at what are those, what do you have in that compass? It is your orientation point, your fixed point in a spinning world that helps you stay on track as a leader. Your true north is based on what is most important to you, your most cherished values, your passions and motivation, the sources of satisfaction in your life. It is derived from your most deeply held beliefs, your values, and your principles you lead by. It is your internal compass, unique to you, that represent who you are at the deepest level. We try to share passage. The slides will be shared. And so these are a lot of things about the true north that we won't be able to look at. But we're going to move on to say, what in a nutshell, what is the true north? It's your life story. It's your crucibles, your challenges, your defining leadership experience. That is what makes up your true north. And this is the compass, the authentic leadership compass, a compass for your journey. The 5 elements that guide the leader through his or her true north. And so this is your true north. And within your true north, these 5 elements is what you need to navigate as a leader, as an authentic leader, to go through that journey. And we're going to quickly go through these 5 elements, these essential elements that will take you. Self-awareness, values and principles that you hold dearly. What are your speed spots? What are the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? Your support team. What support team do you have? In this COVID-19 time, who can you call? Who can you turn to for support? Do you have it? If you don't have it, how can you start building it? Do you live an integrated life? Do you live one life in the office? Do you live another at home? Do you live a whole life? We're going to look at. So those are the 5 dimensions that we're going to be going through to round off this. So staying on course of your true north, your most deeply held belief, values, and principles. How do you stay on course in spite of pressures and seduction to deviate? In terms of COVID-19, in terms of the anxiety, in terms of the stress, in terms of the time that we are in, how do you stay focused on your deeply held beliefs, your values, and your principles? Key challenges that every leader will face from the lens of an authentic leadership compass, particularly in a crisis time. And so the elements, these are the elements. Self-awareness. You need to ask yourself, how can I increase my self-awareness through introspection and feedback? Do you still have time to demand for feedback? Values. You need to ask yourself, what are my most held values? What principles guide my leadership, particularly in a challenging crisis, tumultuous time? Your sweet spot. How can I find my sweet spot that integrates my motivations and greatest capabilities? You need to ask that. Then in terms of your support team, you need to ask, how can I count? Whom can I count on to guide and support me along the way? Very critical. Do I have them? Then last but not least, how can I integrate all aspects of my life and find fulfillment? It is very important. And so, in a nutshell, your authentic leadership through the 5 essential elements is about self-awareness, values and principles, sweet spot, supporting, and living integrated life. And so we are going to run through 5 of them in the next 5 minutes. Mr. Ilo, are we okay? Are we on track?
Yes, we are. I'm with you.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we're going to run through these 5 elements that we need to add to what we already learned in our EHI toolkit that is not sitting in your leadership repertoire. What we've learned in the transformational leadership, including the 4 dimensions that we mentioned in terms of idealized influence, in terms of what we learned about inspirational motivation, about intellectual stimulation, about individualized consideration that we already have in our toolkit. And so right now, how do we navigate through the leadership journey? Self-awareness, values and principles, your sweet spot, supporting, and integrated life. And so self-awareness, know thyself is what you would call the Delphi oracle in the Greece that said, man, know thyself. Learning from your life stories is the very foundation of self-awareness. Becoming self-aware, knowing your authentic self, peeling back the onion, opening up hidden areas, self-compassion and self-acceptance. You must have self-compassion to be able to have empathy. And so these are the sub-dimensions of self-awareness. And we'll look at them quickly. Self-awareness is the foundation of authenticity, and thus it is the center of your compass. Remember, this compass that we show to you, it is not, we didn't just give you the compass just for the sake of it. Let's go back, very important. This compass, the centerpiece of that compass is self-awareness. And every other element revolves around yourself, your authentic self, your authentic person. And so your authenticity is the centerpiece, and every other element is spinning in the compass. Very, very key. And so authentic self is number 1. And so it is important for us to understand that you develop it by exploring your life story and then understanding the meaning of your crucibles, your challenges, your experiences, what you've passed through, your life, the deaths you've observed, the people who have died in your life, The people who you love most, who have passed on, what are those? As you do this, you need to understand who you are at a deeper level. This is hard work, but an essential step in your development as a leader. The charge to know thyself may be thousands of years old in Greece, but following this advice is not easy to do. As human beings, we have many aspects to our character. We are constantly evolving as we test ourselves in the world. The journey to authentic leadership begins with understanding the story of your life. Your life story provides the context for your experience, and through it, you can find the inspiration to make an impact in your world. Becoming self-aware, knowing that is your authentic self. Research has shown that one of the most important capabilities of leaders to develop is self-awareness. Yet many leaders, especially those early in their career, are trying so hard to establish themselves in the world, and they leave little time for self-exploration. Do you take time to explore? They strive to achieve success in tangible ways that are recognized in the external world, like making money, being famous, being powerful. They pursue status or a rising stock market. You know, there's a president in the world now who everything is focused is what is the stock market. He doesn't care what people do. He doesn't care those that die. His own is, how can I be reelected? How can I, increase the stock? Because it is the economy that can guarantee my coming back. Often their drive enables them to be professionally successful for a while, but they are unable to sustain that success. That was what happened in the early 2000s. They want to, ensure that they report huge profits. They want to do window dressing. But in the long run, what happens to those organizations? They are no more. They are gone. And so in this COVID-19 time, as an organization, what are you doing? What values do you hold? Knowing their authentic selves require the courage and honesty to open up and examine their experiences. And they do so, leaders become more humane and willing to be, to be vulnerable. They need to be vulnerable. Peeling back the onion. So if you can look at this onion that I've laid, this is the outer part of the onion. The inner part is yourself, your authentic self. But don't forget, as you search for true self, you are peeling back the layers of this onion. The outer layer of the onion are the visible ways you present yourself to the world. How you look, your facial expressions, your body language, your attire, and your leadership style, right? Often these layers are rough and adding to protect you from the assault of the world around you. Often understanding your outer layer is a necessary first step to going deeper into what lies beneath, because this layer provides access to your inner core. Peeling the onion further, you gain a deeper understanding of your strengths and weaknesses, your intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, your values and those motivations. It is very important. If you look at the outer part, look at the inner part, your authentic self, but your attire, your body language, your strengths and weaknesses, your values, needs, desires, appearance, leadership style, they are all. So remember, as you peel the onions on a daily basis, what will people find inside? Is it rotten or is it a good life? So opening up in these areas, there are a few things about us that are known only to ourselves. Opening more about these things is crucial to becoming more authentic. The easiest way to do so is to share more of our hidden areas, known to ourselves but not to others, with other people. You need to share sometimes. In this anxiety world, you need to be a little bit more open. This requires sharing your life story and difficult times, along with exposing your weaknesses. When we do, we are validated by other people, not rejected by those people, as I know, by as many fears. And this enables us to truly be ourselves. Sometimes we believe that when we share some of our inner self, we will be rejected by others, but it enables people to know us, our authentic self. Self-compassion and self-acceptance. Really, I've said, when we are self-aware, we develop compassion for ourselves and the challenges we have faced in navigating life's difficulties. Only through self-compassion, we have genuine empathy for others and the difficulties they have to face. I say, you can't give what you don't have. Nemo dat quod non habet. If you are a sadist, you cannot give happiness. It is only those who are happy, who are cheerful, that can give happiness. It's only those that understand what it means to have compassion that can have empathy, that can sympathize with people. Respecting others' experiences requires you to love yourself unconditionally. If you don't love yourself, how can you love others? It is very important. So, values and principles. These values, they relate, the relative importance of the things that matter in your life. What are those things that are dear to you? Leadership principle, a set of standards used in leading others derived from your values. Principles are values translated into action. Ethical boundaries, the limit placed on your actions based on your standard of ethical behavior. You need to define your values, principles, and ethical boundaries. You need to test your values under pressure, not only in good times. You need to know, for those who are Christians, temptation comes sometimes. For example, to steal when you really need money the most, when you are in crisis time, when you are so much in need. But your values, your principles will hold you dear, and you say, no, I cannot do that. You need to set your ethical boundaries. Your ethical boundaries set clear limits on what you will do when you are tempted or under pressure. Your sweet spot, finding your sweet spot. You must create a balance. It is very key. The intersection of your motivations and your greatest strength. You can see the sweet spot, your extrinsic motivations and your intrinsic motivations. Like I said last week, education has intrinsic value. It has the ability to build you. But don't forget, education is also a means to an end to bring money. You have strength, you have weaknesses. When you are operating in your sweet spot, when you are operating in your sweet spot, you feel inspired to do great things and confident that you can accomplish them because you are using your strength. Having an awareness of what motivates you and understanding your strengths and weaknesses enable you to discover your sweet spot. And so, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Some individuals always say, I don't have any weaknesses. No, we do. Your ability to identify your weaknesses and work on them so that you can optimize your strength, your ability to balance your intrinsic motivations and your extrinsic motivation. What motivates you as a person is very critical. When you do, you create a powerful flywheel that enables you to be both successful and fulfilled. Operating in your sweet spot, you align with your true north. That true north, the compass, and those things that are elements that are regulating, and you have the greatest opportunity to make a difference in your world. You need to understand your sweet spot, ability for you to balance strength and weaknesses, intrinsic and extrinsic for motivation. That is your sweet spot, and you need to know them. And so I've highlighted some of your extrinsic motivations. What motivates you as a person? The extrinsic one: money, power, titles, public recognition, social status, acclaim from peers, defeating others. Some people always want to win. They don't want a win-win situation. But what motivates you from the inner part of your authentic self? Personal growth, cherishing family, satisfying of doing well, helping others to develop, finding meaning in work, being true to one's belief, making difference in this beautiful world that we live in. And so balancing your motivation, many leaders have learned the hard way that external recognition can be a fickle lover. When things do not go their way, external sources of gratification disappear very, very quickly. So do their superficial friends and acquaintances. They disappear also when things are not going well, right? So, but the key to developing as an authentic leader is not eschewing your intrinsic motivation, but balancing them with intrinsic motivation that provide fulfillment in the long run in a sustainable manner. Support team, build a strong team support. Very critical. A lot of us, we don't take this one seriously. If you were facing a major crisis in your life, such as losing your job, life-threatening illnesses, like some people are facing in this COVID-19 time, difficulties in your marriage or death of a loved one, to whom would you turn? In challenging times, if you are like a boss, can your subordinate turn to you? You need a solid network of trusted relationship with people who are available to counsel and care for you. Your support team is built upon long-term relationships and may include your spouse or your partner, family members, best friends, mentors, and a small group of people. It may also include your colleagues in the workplace. Build a strong support team and build true friendship. Integrated life, integrating all aspects of your life. Yeah, this is last, but really not the least. You must live an integrated life. The world will shape you if you let it. To live the life you desire, you must make conscious choice. This was said by John Danaher, a former CEO of eBay. The world will shape you if you let it. To live the life you desire, you must make conscious choices. Authentic leaders are constantly aware of the importance of staying grounded. To lead an integrated life, you need to bring together the major elements of your personal life and professional life, including your work, your family, community, friends, so that you can be the same person in each environment. Don't live a double life. Don't live one life at home and one life. An integrated life makes you a better leader, and you need to stay grounded by integrating your life. Being authentic is not just something you are at work. It must be reflected in all aspects of your life. So we need to be rounding up, which is, how do we put this all together? My hope is that you will be inspired. But before we go, I want us to do a 5 minutes group exercise. Mr. Ilo, do we have 5 minutes?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, so so right now, I want to put us into a group. I want to share us in a group, and from there, we will quickly, within the group, just a mini exercise, discuss amongst ourselves what we learned. Number one, sharing our life story. What are our crucibles, and how do we learn from our life experiences? And so for each of the group, we'll share about 1 or 2 questions that we can discuss amongst ourselves. Within the group, we can pick that. And so one person within that group might talk on question 1 and question 2. Then we will just use 2 minutes. When we come back, just be able to unmute few persons from each group, learn from it, what their experiences have been, whether from the terms of the crucibles, whether their life stories or the experiences they had. Then we will now we'll just begin to wrap it up, and we can now make quality day. So quickly, let me put us now into the group. Are we fine?
Yeah, but why putting them into groups? I think it would be nice if they have any questions, like the way, what's the name again? The way Azuka had asked. If you can, while you are putting participants into groups,
Yes.
questions, feedbacks, and maybe, that thing from the audience.
Okay. No, that will be fine. That will be fine. Did you get the questions?
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
Yeah, you said something about leadership. Okay, you said something about our experience. Okay, let me look at it again. Something about life journey to authentic leadership. Something about our life experience to authentic leadership.
Yes.
That we should share all our experiences. Everybody should talk about their experience.
So within the group, so you are in a group now about 7 people, right? Or
Yes.
6, 7.
Yes.
So within that group,
so.
just have the little conversation. So it's like a group discussion. So
okay.
We brought the questions so that you can pick one of the questions and just discuss that questions amongst yourselves.
We only saw one question.
No. It's in the, if you go to the chart, you will see the questions there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
the
chart.
Yes.
Okay. How do we assess that?
Just scroll up.
Yes. Okay. So there are questions that we posted in the chat window. So the questions are in the chat.
Questions.
Yeah, the questions. So pick any of them you feel you are comfortable with. Each person should pick one, discuss it amongst yourself. Then within the next 3 minutes, we have to navigate back to committee of the whole. Then we just pick 1 or 2 questions and we move. Then we wrap up this program, please.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so just discuss them. So this is a group. You have about 3, 4, 5 persons, right? You have about 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So please just discuss amongst yourself. Everything you discuss is only within this group. Nobody out there is hearing you.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've unmute everybody.
Okay.
I've unmute everybody.
Because I've tried to call Mr. Ozu, he wasn't responding, and the other person just joined now. The BOD just joined.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm trying to unmute BOD, but Okay, I can't unmute her. I guess she must be busy with another thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so the other members should discuss among themselves, please. Huh?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right then. So discuss, pick one or two of the questions, then just look at it, then we move back, right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right then.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're already discussing, yeah.
Okay, yes. In which experience did you looking at patterns from your early life story? What people, events, and experiences have you had the greatest impact on you and your life? Yeah, I want to say it was. I wouldn't say it's an early life event. Hello, Stephen?
Okay, I'm listening. Yeah.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's an early life event. It's a career life event. Career life event. I've had to work in organizations where, you know, the lecture on this, the lecture today talks about is a leader.
There is a place for empathy. I'm a task-oriented person and I want the results. Then as I was growing up, I started, reading books and attending seminars like this. And I started, it's almost a 360-degree change. The empathy is key to leadership. Listening is important. And then you must lead by example yourself. When you give them an assignment to do, you must roll up your sleeve to show them that you know how to do it. It's not just dishing out orders. So all these things are important. We've mentioned almost all of them. They are key.
And then most importantly, you have to entertain them. You have to go out of your way.
Yeah.
Okay, group one. How are we making great progress? Hello, can you hear me here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we in another 30 seconds, I'm going to close this room. So are we all, can we all hear? Have we been speaking to ourselves? Have we been speaking to ourselves?
No, we've just started getting together.
Okay.
Distributed questions amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, let's see whether we can wrap up in 2 minutes. Is that fine?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, afternoon. Okay, so I noticed that I've been struggling to unmute some persons. I think that has been the challenge. Maybe they are having another function, so I'm not able to unmute them. Okay, so thank you very much. So in another 3 minutes, we'll go back to the 2 minutes. We'll go back to the main program.
That's fine.
Okay. Hello, are we doing well here?
Yes.
Okay, so in another 2 minutes, we will be moving. We'll close the meeting for all groups. 2 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.